Chemicals are part of our daily lives. They play an important and necessary role across all industries, including yours. It's important to understand and be aware of the chemicals handled in your workplace in order to prevent damage to yourself, your colleagues, plant equipment, and the environment. Some of the Ixom chemicals that are used by your workplace can be dangerous. And essentially, we are all responsible for working together to make sure that everyone goes home in the same condition that they have come to work in. This video will give you the skills and knowledge to be able to identify chemicals, help you to understand how chemicals must be stored for safety, and advise what you should do in an emergency situation. Cleaning and sanitizing are some of the most important aspects in the process of food and beverage manufacturing. Food and beverage products need to be of a consistent quality and safe for consumers. Cleaning and sanitizing is therefore required to reduce the microbiological risk. This is so that the product does not make a consumer sick. Reduce bulk soil and macro contamination. A manufactured product needs to conform to a consistent quality specification. And improve plant performance. This is achieved by reducing the buildup on heat transfer surfaces, such as in a pasteurizer plate pack. And to achieve these outcomes, chemicals are needed. More specifically, these chemicals are used for clean in place. This is the cleaning of internal surfaces, also known as CIP. For example, cleaning of the internal surfaces of pipework. Clean out of place. This is the dismantling or removing of parts and then cleaning, like putting equipment components through a dishwasher. Environmental cleaning and fogging, such as foaming hard surfaces, and also some food and beverage ingredients. Let's now look at the types of Ixom chemicals you might come across and the hazards that you need to be aware of. Overall, there are 9 chemical classifications that are grouped according to their hazardous properties. Some of these hazard classes are further broken down based on their chemical or physical properties. Out of these, the most common ones used for cleaning are Class 3 flammable liquids, recognisable by the flame symbol. Class 5 oxidizers and organic peroxides, recognisable by the flame and yellow background. Class 8 corrosives. These substances can be either corrosive to skin or metal, or both. The majority of the Ixom cleaning and sanitizing chemicals in your workplace will fall into this classification. You can recognise a Class 8 corrosive by the symbol of 2 test tubes pouring chemical onto some metal and a hand. Let's now look at each of these in more detail. You may have some Class 3 flammable liquids in your workplace. Examples include hand sanitizers that contain ethanol, or even some surface spray sanitizers. Class 3 flammable liquids are capable of being ignited, therefore it is important to store away from sources of heat or ignition. A dedicated flammable storage cabinet is best. Do not store Class 3 chemicals within 5 meters of any other chemical class. Class 5 oxidizers are most commonly used as sanitizers to kill microbiological organisms. Examples include hydrogen peroxide, proxetane, or perform. Oxidizers are a severe fire hazard. They are not necessarily combustible by themselves, but can intensify fire by providing the oxygen needed for combustion. Oxidizers react readily with organic and combustible materials and can cause spontaneous ignition. Therefore, keep oxidizers stored away from all unnecessary materials. Use and store oxidizers in well-ventilated areas and out of direct sunlight. Pay particular attention to never storing oxidizers on wooden pallets, as violent reactions may occur. The wooden pallets may catch fire if there is incidental contact with a Class 5 oxidizer. Class 8 corrosives can attack metal or expose skin. The 2 most common subtypes of Class 8 corrosives are alkaline corrosives with a high pH. An example of an alkaline corrosive is sodium hydroxide or caustic soda, which is commonly used in cleaning to move protein and fats from surfaces, and acid corrosives with a low pH. These acidic corrosives are primarily used in cleaning to dissolve minerals from surfaces, and they also have some microbiocidal properties. Alkaline and acid corrosives are incompatible and should never be stored together or mixed. It can cause a very violent reaction, which generates a large amount of heat and chemical mist. Now that you know that alkaline corrosives and acid corrosives cannot be mixed or stored together, it is also important to know to never mix chlorinated alkalis with acids. Mixing these chemicals can lead to a dangerous reaction, harmful to humans. Never mix any chemicals. If you see a situation you are unsure of, please consult with your supervisor. You can reduce the risks of hazardous chemicals by following some general handling and storage guidelines. Ixom recommends to always use chemicals as per instructions. For example, if the instruction is to dilute the chemical 1 to 10, that means you need to add 1 part of chemical to 10 parts of water. Always add the chemical to water and never the other way around. Store chemical containers in an upright position. This not only helps to prevent leaks, but also avoids the pressurization of the containers by allowing the minor chemical fumes to vent. Always ensure lids on chemical containers are firmly secured when not in use. This helps to prevent spills and also helps avoid chemical contact when transferring containers from one location to another. Avoid decanting chemicals. However, if that is not possible, always use an appropriate and dedicated decanting device. Always operate the decanting device away from your body. Ensure all chemical containers are correctly labelled. An incorrect or missing label increases the chance of mistaking the chemical for something it is not. Never sniff or inhale chemicals directly. Some of the fumes and vapours from chemicals can be harmful. Refer to the labels of chemicals to identify them instead. Never eat or smoke around chemicals. And always wash your hands following chemical exposure. Dispose of the empty chemical containers appropriately. If safe to do so, it is best practice to triple rinse empty containers with water and remove the labels. Refer to your workplace procedure on how to best dispose of empty chemical containers. And for chemical handling tasks that cannot be avoided, always use the appropriate personal protective equipment, or PPE, when handling them. You will need to refer to the chemical safety data sheets and your workplace safety procedures to identify what PPE is required for the task. While PPE should only be relied upon as a last line of defence, it is still often essential when working with chemicals. PPE creates a barrier between you and the hazardous chemicals. We will now talk about the types of PPE you may need to use. Safety glasses are possibly the most important item of PPE you will need. Our eyes absorb chemical 12 times faster than our forearms. Safety glasses have safety frames constructed of metal or plastic and impact-resistant lenses with side protection. Some tasks may actually require you to use safety goggles. Safety goggles are tight-fitting eye protection that completely covers the eyes, eye sockets, and facial area surrounding the eyes. Refer to the chemical SDS as well as your workplace safety procedures to find out what eye protection would be best for which tasks. A face shield extends from your forehead to below the chin and across the width of your face. Face shields protect against potential sprays of hazardous liquids from front on. If a face shield is required for a chemical handling task, it is important to also be wearing safety goggles as well. Gloves can be worn to protect the skin of your hands and arms. When choosing appropriate chemical-resistant gloves, be aware that some gloves may be resistant to some chemicals, but not others. As a general rule, PVC and nitrile gloves are best. Also, pick a glove length that is suitable for the task. When removing gloves, firstly rinse them and then peel them off away from your body. Store or dispose of them appropriately. Aprons can help keep you protected from chemical contact. Just like with gloves, some aprons may not be made out of a material that is compatible with the chemicals you are handling. Make sure your apron fits appropriately. You do not want to introduce another hazard by wearing an undersized or oversized apron. Where there is a risk of chemical contamination of footwear, chemical-resistant boots are recommended. Wear closed-in shoes at all times in areas where chemicals are used or stored. Leather or suede footwear tend to absorb chemical and should be avoided. And where there is a risk of items falling on feet, Australian standard compliant steel-capped footwear should be worn. Inhalation is one of the principal routes by which harmful materials can enter the body. If the exposure to airborne chemical concentration cannot be reduced to acceptable levels, then respiratory protection may be necessary. Always attempt to avoid generating dust, but where that is not possible, a dust mask or respirator may be required. This PPE relies on an effective facial seal, so correct fitting is vital. These are some general safety principles when working with PPE. Select. The effectiveness of PPE is dependent on the right PPE being used. If the wrong PPE is used, it might not provide adequate protection. The SDS will indicate what PPE is required for handling each chemical. Also, refer to your workplace safety procedures or signage in your work area. If you are unsure, ask your supervisor for guidance. Inspect. Before use, always inspect PPE for leaks, damage or wear that could allow chemicals to get through. If a fault is detected, fix or replace the PPE before use. If you are unsure, consult with your supervisor. Use. Your PPE will not protect you if you do not have it on. The PPE must fit you properly and used at all times it is required. Maintain. Your PPE will not look after you if you do not look after it. Always rinse PPE with water after use to remove any chemical residue. Then store your PPE appropriately so it stays clean and damage-free. It's important to be prepared for emergencies and incidents when handling chemicals. There is a likelihood that chemicals could cause an incident by coming into contact with your skin or eyes, ingestion, where chemical splashes in your mouth, or when a chemical is mistaken as a consumable substance, or inhalation, where you have been exposed to dusts, vapours, fumes, or gaseous chemicals. It is important to know ahead of time what to do in each of these situations. For skin or eye contact, get to a safety shower or eye wash station as quickly as possible. It is recommended to flush the affected area with cold water for at least 15 minutes. Remove any contaminated clothing and seek medical attention. Therefore, be aware of where the nearest safety shower or eye wash is to your workstation. For chemical ingestion, rinse the mouth thoroughly with water. Sip small quantities of water. Do not try and vomit. And seek medical attention. This situation may occur due to storing chemicals in food or drink containers. Therefore, never place anything other than food or drink into food containers or drink bottles. For chemical inhalation, remove yourself from the exposure and into a well-ventilated area and seek medical attention. Confined spaces and chemical exposure can create more hazards. Make sure it is safe to enter any confined space before assisting others in an emergency situation. If you need more information about the chemicals in your workplace, more information can be found on the safety data sheets or SDSs, by reading the labels on the chemical containers and referring to the safety charts that are in your workplace. Your workplace should have safety data sheet or SDS registers. The SDSs in this register will contain all the important information on the chemical properties and hazards, as well as proper handling and emergency procedures. The labels on the chemical container will tell you what the chemical is, the potential hazards, and some safety directions. Safety charts are a good quick reference guide that provides a concise summary of the key information on the SDSs and labels. You will find in all these locations the Ixom Emergency Response Service number, which is 1800 033 111. This is a toll-free service that is monitored 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This number can be used in an emergency to get technical advice over the phone about the chemicals that are in your workplace. You have an important role to play in your workplace safety program. You have a responsibility to keep yourself and your workmates safe. It's important to strive for zero incidents, accidents, and illnesses so that everyone goes home in the same condition they came to work in every day. If you do have any questions, please talk to your supervisor in the first instance.